This guitar is by Mule resophonic. My friend Matt builds these in Saginaw, Michigan. He builds a lot of resonators and builds telly style guitars that are steel, completely hollow. And what happened with me is that when I was recording my new record, there's one song on it that I used a Tiesco Del Rey, a $50 guitar that I bought on tour years ago, with one gold foil pickup through this K-amp that I was trying to blow up, you know, and it sounded amazing. It just had this magic to it. It was super microphonic, so it would react to every single thing and nuance that would happen. And I got really inspired by it. I tuned it to just baritone standard tuning, so B standard. And I was really enjoying it. It brought out a different side to my playing and just the way I approached it and thought about it. And, you know, I said, this is fun. I want to make this more of a consistent thing of my playing. So I took it out on a couple shows, and the guitar was absolutely unusable, just due to the pickup being microphonic and all these things. It just was not a live guitar. So I had Matt build me this, and I know that he would do these tellies always, and I said, man, can you please build me a Strat? I'm a Strat guy. And he did. And it's the same thing, you know. These are his pickups, mini humbucker and a gold foil style pickup. They're called Mule buckers. And it's usable live, and it's become a big part of my sound now. I'm really enjoying it. All inspired from that one song, but now I've taken a bunch of other stuff that I normally play, and I've just switched it all over to being able to do it on this guitar. Yeah, it's not terribly heavy. Everyone's always asking if it's heavy. It feels just like any other weight of a Strat. It just feels like a Strat to me. That's the best part about it. It doesn't feel like a completely off-the-wall different instrument. The only difference, it doesn't have really the belly dip that a Strat does. And it doesn't bother me. If anything, it just feels like, the body feels like a telly. So I'm digging it. It's just a lot of fun. It's different. And I just wanted to go for something different. I've been using some of these pedals for a very long time, but now I've kind of worked it down to some of the essentials for my set and for what I do. Just my clean tone right out the gate. I'm going through a 2-rock traditional clean. I'm actually, for this tour, I'm running 2 2-rocks, one wet, one dry, and then a V40 Deluxe, which only gets engaged when I kick on my tremolo. So it just moves a bit of extra air. It's been working out. It's been a lot of fun. For the pedal board, clean tone. First in the chain is the Octaland by King Tone, Jesse Davey. It sounds like. And it can be really clean, which I like. It's got the headroom. And when you hit it with something like an overdrive pedal, a lot of fun. Pardon me. The next is another fuzz. It's the Oz by Vemiram, which is a silicon fuzz. Again, it's pretty clean when it's just on its own. When you hit it with an overdrive pedal, And I typically have one overdrive on the whole time. So it's either the next two pedals, it's either the Duelist by Jesse Davey or the Revival Drive. Most of the Revival Drive is kind of new for me. I'm still getting to know it. It's a lot of fun. I typically have the Duelist on all the time though. I normally run my guitar around 6 or 7. It'll clean up pretty nice. Yeah, and if I'm not using that, I'll use the Revival Drive. And I don't have it nearly as distorted or overdriven as most people would use it. I've been going for more of a tweed, ampy kind of thing. So that's the Revival. After that, I'm just going to keep the Duelist on for the rest of the time because that's basically how I run it. I have the Cali 76 compressor. And I don't use it a lot live. It's primarily a studio tool. I have one song called Fade that I use it on the main slide lick. Live, I really don't use it that much otherwise, unless I can really make use of it to make it pop in the mix a bit more, or just give myself a touch more level. But it sounds great in terms of compressors. So that's that. I always play an amp with reverb, but I have a TC Hall of Fame too. Just as an effect sometimes, I did a tone print with them last year, and we called it Pillow Talk. It's a pillowy sounding reverb. Sounds like this. I use it sparingly, but if there's ever an opportunity, it does that kind of thing. So that's nice. After that, I'm running the Eventide H9, and I'm using 3 effects right now with it. I'm using a long delay. And then I'm using a slap delay. Let's see. And then I'm using a Leslie sound. So I like that. It's fun sometimes. And then the last thing is the Flint by Strymon. I just use it for the harmonic tremolo. I have this, I think I talked about it last time, I have a Victoria Reverberato, which is a big Marshall-sized pedal, essentially. It's a head that has reverb and harmonic tremolo. And I find that the Flint gets the closest to it, for me. It moves the air that I need it to. It sounds like this. And that's it. I don't use the board, or the switcher rather, nearly to its potential. I typically have a preset of just an overdrive on, so the dualist. I have another preset of just the dualist and the tremolo. And then I have a preset of just completely bypassed everything. I like to just do everything on the fly. I could make my life a lot easier, but I like to, in the moment, change it. And if I decide, maybe I want to try something different today, that's what I'll go for. But that's it. Really enjoying this setup. Bottom line for me, I have realized what I need to get a sound that helps me play the way that I play and want to play. I need an amp that can hold its own in terms of headroom. So, you know, in the studio, it's nice to use low wattage amps and stuff like that. But live, I need a loud amp. I need an amp that's at least 50 watts and up, just because I ride my volume so much on the guitar. I need that headroom, and if I start topping out immediately in terms of breaking up and whatnot in a live situation, my playing just drastically changes. If I start not being able to hear myself, I really start to struggle, and I don't play like myself. So I need an amp that's loud. I need reverb. I just cannot play without reverb. If I got rid of it, I just play differently. And there's nothing wrong. If you're a no reverb guy or gal, that's cool. That's just what works for me. I like everything that's played to trail off just a bit. So what do I really need? You know, an amp that can hold its own in terms of wattage, reverb, and whatever guitar I'm playing, whether it be a 335 style guitar, Les Paul, Strat, Tele, whatever, they need to be low output pickups. That's another thing about the topping out thing. Whenever I play a guitar that has really hot pickups, and you plug into an amp like this, and it's already breaking up, and it's like, okay, why is this breaking up already? There's some magic in that. You play some Les Pauls, some newer ones with those higher output. It's like, okay, I can see why people like this. But low output to me lets you control your dynamics so much more. First of all, I think it sounds smoother. It sounds a bit cleaner and warmer. And when you can control your dynamics, everything about your sound relies on the guitar volume, you know, because right out the gate, if you're full volume, you're not already breaking up. So a guitar like this, these are low output. This is a mini humbucker and a gold foil style pickup made by Matt at Mule Guitars. Pretty clean, just wide open. But if I turn my volume down, I live at about 6 or 7 on the guitar at all times. Maybe 20% of the night I'm actually full on the guitar, and that's for solos at the end or something like that. There's just so many different sounds from where you're sitting on the volume. So that being said, I typically keep an overdrive on at all time. I keep the Duelist on as my always on. And I know I was just talking about I need a clean amp. The reason I need a clean, loud amp is that I can take an overdrive like the Duelist, which sounds like this, wide open. And I can live at about 6 or 7 on the guitar. And it's clean, but still loud. Like I still have a lot of volume. But then if I want to, you know, grow, I always have that extra headroom and that space to grow. Whereas if I just lived up here the whole time, and just switched the pedal on and off, to me it's two completely different sounds. And I actually prefer something like the Duelist on 6 or 7 on your guitar as a clean sound, because it is clean, but there's still a touch of grit there, something a bit more inspiring for me than that crystal clean amp thing that we all know. That's what works for me, right out the gate. Those are the bare essentials. And for me, oh, another thing is the guitar specifically, I like to play heavier strings. And now that I've been doing this baritone tuning thing for the last 5 months, which is in B standard, it's like standard tuning, but down a fourth. It's like playing a 7-string without the high E string, really, is what it is. You know, the lower tuning and the heavier strings just bring a different girth to the mix for me, and I really like it. It's taken a while just to find a happy medium where you're not jumping into the bass player's range, and I don't feel like it's doing that on this guitar because of the 25.5 scale length. It doesn't sound like a long scale baritone, which is about 27 usually. It sounds like a guitar, it doesn't sound like a bass. So my point is if I use someone else's guitar with 10s on it and it's kissing the fretboard, I tend to really struggle on a guitar like that because I'm used to having to have a fight with the guitar, and I dig in and I play hard. So that's another essential for me. I should also say I like simple. I don't like overly complicated. If there's a million switches on an amp, that's typically not a red flag, but I'll steer away from it because I'm if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of guy. If I find something that I like, it's good. The reason I like the traditional clean so much is that it is simple, you know? Yes, I do keep it completely flat. Depending on the guitar, I might add a bit of treble sometimes and turn the bass down just a touch because of the nature of these low-tuned guitars. But I like to keep it flat. We're obviously in video volume right now, but live, I actually don't go much louder than that on this tour. And keep in mind, I'm running 3 amps. So I don't need that much volume for it. And these are loud. This is only a 40 watt. My personal one's an 100 watt, but it's a usable 100 watts. It doesn't feel like a twin where it's pokey and glassy in the way we don't like. But yeah, the presence knob is actually higher than I'd usually. Yeah, it kind of lives around there. Nice and simple. I don't like to ride anything specifically. I don't crank the bass, I don't crank the treble. I like keeping everything flat and let everything come mixing-wise from the guitar or whatever pedal I might be running it through. The Dualist, which is my always-on, I have the drive at about 11 o'clock, and the volume and tone basically between 11 and 12 o'clock as well, so fairly flat. You get quite a bit out of it. But it's not that obtrusive. You know, if I cranked it, that's the drive fully. That's a little more gain than I'd normally like to use. Instead of keeping it on full like that, I'd rather keep it around 11. And then if I want to take it to another level, I'd rather hit it with a fuzz or something. Because it's just warmer and pillowier and creamier. It's just what I prefer. The Dualist does actually have another drive, which is the side that I use is the blues breaker side. The other side is supposed to be more of a tube screamer. So this is what I use. With the exact same settings, if I use the glass or the string singer side, I mean, when you have them EQ'd like that, they sound pretty similar. But it works for me. Whenever I do any of the slide stuff, that's another thing about having an overdrive, is I can't just do a clean amp with it. I need to have some hair on the end of it. When I turn the volume down, I still have that hair on the end of it, rather than if I went clean. It's pretty as well. I like that, but in a live setting, it doesn't quite cut it, volume-wise, to play with a band. The fuzz, I have more volume than gain going. So I keep the bass and treble kind of around 12 o'clock. The volume is at about 12 o'clock. Actually, no, it's more about 10 o'clock, and I have the gain around 8 or 9 o'clock. So yeah, on its own, as you were saying, it's got a lot of girth on it, but not that, you know, it's nothing that crazy. It's when you hit it with the other pedal, that's when it really comes alive. That's when I like it the most. And I use it sparingly. The fuzz, if I use fuzz all the time, you know, frequency-wise, it takes up a lot of space in a mix. It's really low, it can get drowned out, or it might not pop the way that it might on stage in a band setting. But it's warm, and I like warm and big and fat. That's what I like, and loud. I have the reverb from the TC, and I have the Flint. I don't ever use the reverb on the Flint unless I am in a backline situation where I have to use an amp without reverb, and that almost never happens. But if it does, you know, the Flint acts as my plain reverb, always on, and the TC one is more of an effect reverb. So if I'm doing something a bit more subdued, I have a couple of moments in the show where I just might be playing on my own for a bit, setting up a song. Stuff like that. It just adds more color, adds more length to every phrase. That's how I'll typically use it. It'll get kind of drowned out once the band is playing. Yeah, sure. But on its own, it's quite pretty. Yeah. Delay, I get in and out of phases with delay. I either like it a lot or I forget that I even have it. So lately I've been using delay again, like a long delay. And it's just those moments when you're playing, maybe in a solo. And in a live setting, those repeats don't jump out as much. In fact, I have the repeats, or the mix rather, a little hotter than I normally would. This is a reminder that I need to turn it down a bit. But I use the slap so much more than the long delay. Because I love reverb, and having the slap puts a little more hair on it in a way that it just sounds more far mic'd, you know? It gives it that sound like you're on stage, but the microphone is 10 feet away from the amp, and you're listening back in a control room, and it sounds distant mic, you know? I don't know, it's a guilty pleasure effect for me, and I tend to overuse it. It's a feel thing. Honestly, most effects for me lean more on how they feel when you're playing them than how they sound. Obviously, they sound the way I need them to sound, but they feel right when I play them, and they inspire me to dig in certain ways that I wouldn't if they weren't on. And slap has a big role in that.